The wheelchair wheels stopped hard against the curb outside his quiet new home. Daniel Reyes stared at the crumpled lawsuit notice trembling between his calloused fingers. Sued for walking loudly. The absurd words burned straight through his exhausted mind. 3 weeks earlier he had moved here seeking peace after 2 brutal deployments overseas. The cul-de-sac smelled of fresh-cut grass and someone's distant backyard barbecue smoke. Birds chirped softly while his neighbor Patricia Calloway marched across her manicured front lawn. She wore pearls, sunglasses, and an expression carved from pure suburban superiority and rage. Her voice sliced through the morning air like a blade aimed directly at him. You violate noise ordinances every single morning with that ridiculous metal contraption. She snapped. Daniel blinked twice. Certain he had somehow misunderstood her absurd and cruel accusation. The contraption she meant was his prosthetic leg brace clicking against the sidewalk pavement. His chest tightened as old memories of combat noise flooded back unexpectedly and painfully. Patricia ran the homeowners association with an iron fist wrapped in fake politeness. She had already fined 3 families for crimes as trivial as mismatched mailbox flags. A Hispanic family was forced to remove cultural decorations she called visually offensive eyesores. An elderly widow received warnings for watering her roses 2 minutes past sunset. Daniel had hoped his military discipline would earn him quiet respect within this neighborhood. Instead, Patricia viewed his wheelchair ramp as an unsightly violation worthy of harsh punishment. She filed a formal noise complaint claiming his mobility equipment disturbed peaceful neighborhood mornings. The lawsuit demanded $5,000 for what she called chronic disruptive movement noise. Daniel's hands shook holding papers that mocked every sacrifice he had given his country. His neighbor Maria Santos watched from her porch with growing disbelief and quiet anger. Maria had lived here for years and recognized Patricia's pattern of selective cruel enforcement. She walked closer. Phone already recording. Refusing to stay silent any longer today. This is harassment. Stepping directly between Daniel and Patricia's smug expression. Patricia scoffed. Insisting rules were rules regardless of anyone's military service or disability status. Daniel's jaw tightened as humiliation mixed dangerously with years of suppressed righteous anger. He had survived gunfire, explosions, and unbearable loss. Yet this moment cut even deeper. Sunlight glinted off his bronze service medal resting inside his nearby porch display case. That medal represented sacrifice Patricia would never understand hidden behind her gated privilege. Daniel exhaled slowly. Refusing to let her cruelty break the composure, he fought hard. I will not be silenced, he said quietly. Voice steady despite trembling, exhausted hands. Patricia rolled her eyes. Turned sharply. Sized colonial house. Maria knelt beside him. Anger and compassion blending across her determined, worried face. She's done this before, Maria whispered. Not this time. Something hardening behind his tired but focused eyes. He thought of his late father. A lawyer who taught him to fight smart. Inside his modest home. Dusty law books waited from his father's forgotten legal career. Tonight he would read every page until justice became more than a distant hope. The lawsuit was reckless. Public. Fabricated noise complaint testimony. Patricia had unknowingly handed him a weapon disguised as a frivolous legal threat. Daniel wheeled himself inside. Jaw set. Humiliation from moments earlier. The fight had only just begun. And Patricia had no idea what awaited her. That night Daniel spread legal documents across his kitchen table beneath dim yellow light. His father's handwritten notes filled the margins of old contract and tort law textbooks. He researched HOA overreach cases where homeowners successfully countersued for malicious harassment claims. Hours passed while exhaustion fought against burning determination, refusing to let injustice win quietly. Maria arrived around midnight carrying coffee and a folder of neighborhood incident reports. "I documented everything," she said. Selective enforcement across the table. Pictures showed find mailboxes beside untouched violations belonging to Patricia's personal close friends. Daniel's eyes widened, recognizing a clear pattern of discriminatory and retaliatory HOA behavior. "This isn't just unfair," Maria said. "Built on prejudice." Daniel nodded slowly. Realizing his lawsuit could expose far more than personal humiliation alone. The next morning he visited a local attorney specializing in homeowners association legal disputes. Attorney Grace Liu reviewed his case with growing interest and barely concealed professional excitement. "This countersuit could be substantial," she said. "Discriminatory enforcement evidence attached." Daniel felt something shift inside him. Fear transforming slowly into focused, controlled resolve. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood about Daniel's lawsuit against the powerful HOA president. Some neighbors avoided eye contact, terrified of becoming Patricia's next humiliating public target. Others quietly thanked Daniel, whispering stories of their own unfair treatment under her rule. Patricia grew more aggressive, posting passive-aggressive notices throughout the entire community. She accused Daniel publicly of disrespecting neighborhood standards and disturbing everyone's peaceful suburban lifestyle. Her arrogance blinded her completely to the storm quietly gathering against her cruel reign. Daniel gathered statements from the Hispanic family forced to remove cultural holiday decorations earlier. He collected testimony from the elderly widow fined over harmless evening rose watering. Each story painted a damning picture of abuse hidden behind polished HOA bylaws. Attorney Liu filed the official countersuit demanding $50,000 for malicious legal harassment. The number stunned the neighborhood, turning private gossip into open public neighborhood conversation. Patricia received the papers while hosting her monthly HOA meeting inside the clubhouse. Her face drained of color as she read accusations of discriminatory selective enforcement practices. "This is outrageous," she shouted. Stunned silent board members. But evidence mounted steadily. Witnesses came forward, and her credibility began crumbling rapidly publicly. Daniel sat quietly each evening, reviewing depositions, refusing to let exhaustion slow his momentum. He remembered military training emphasizing patience, strategy, of clear objectives. Maria organized a neighborhood meeting where residents finally spoke openly against Patricia's tyranny. One by one. Fair fines, threats, confrontations. Patricia's allies on the HOA board began distancing themselves, sensing impending serious legal trouble. Her once untouchable authority started fracturing beneath mounting community outrage and damning legal evidence. Daniel watched from his porch, metal glinting beside him, feeling justice finally within reach. The hearing date arrived, promising a public reckoning years overdue for the entire neighborhood. Patricia prepared aggressively, unaware her own arrogance had already sealed her devastating downfall completely. Daniel wheeled toward the courthouse steps, heart pounding with controlled fierce determined anticipation. This was no longer about noise complaints. but about dignity and long overdue justice. The courthouse buzzed with neighbors crowding benches eager to witness the dramatic confrontation unfold. Patricia entered confidently. Blazer pressed. Sunglasses perched. Utterly certain of inevitable easy victory ahead. Daniel wheeled forward calmly. Medal pinned proudly against his chest for the entire hearing. Attorney Lou presented evidence methodically, exposing years of discriminatory HOA enforcement patterns clearly documented. Witness after witness described unfair fines targeting minorities, elderly residents, and disabled community members. The Hispanic family testified about humiliating decoration removals demanded without legitimate written cause. The elderly widow described relentless harassment over imaginary watering violations enforced selectively against her. Patricia's composure cracked visibly as testimony painted an undeniable pattern of cruel targeted abuse. Daniel finally spoke. Voice steady, mistaking his prosthetic leg brace noise. I served my country honorably, he said. Injury. Gasps echoed through the courtroom as jurors absorbed the painful weight of his words. Patricia's lawyer objected weakly, unable to counter overwhelming documented evidence against his client effectively. The judge reviewed financial records revealing Patricia had pocketed disputed HOA fines for years. This wasn't merely harassment, the judge declared. This was calculated financial exploitation of residents. The courtroom erupted in murmurs as Patricia's carefully constructed image shattered completely before everyone. The jury deliberated briefly before returning with a verdict favoring Daniel's countersuit overwhelmingly and decisively. $50,000. The judge announced. Awarded entirely for malicious harassment and discriminatory abuse. Patricia's face turned ashen as reality crushed her remaining shred of arrogant confidence instantly. Her embezzlement charges followed swiftly, exposing additional financial crimes hidden beneath HOA paperwork. Neighbors who once feared her now watched stripped authority dissolve into humiliating public disgrace. The HOA board removed her immediately, revoking every privilege she once wielded so cruelly. Patricia's beautiful colonial house went up for sale within weeks to cover legal debts. She left quietly one morning. Neighbors watching silently from porches without a single farewell. Daniel watched the moving truck disappear, feeling closure replace months of painful, humiliating struggle. Maria approached, smiling warmly, placing a comforting hand upon his trembling, grateful shoulder gently. You changed this neighborhood forever, she said, in quiet pride. Families who had suffered silently now felt safe expressing themselves without fear of retaliation. The Hispanic family proudly redisplayed their cultural decorations without hesitation or lingering quiet fear. The elderly widow watered her roses freely, finally enjoying peace within her own garden. Daniel established a new community council promoting fairness, respect, and practices. His father's old law books remained open on his desk, finally fulfilling their forgotten purpose. He realized resilience meant transforming pain into purpose rather than simply surviving quietly alone. The medal beside him no longer represented mere survival but renewed, unwavering personal strength. Justice had arrived slowly, painfully, restoring dignity to an entire wounded community. Patricia's bitter downfall served as warning against unchecked power hiding behind polished suburban respectability. Daniel's victory proved that courage, patience, entrenched cruel authority. As sunset bathed the cul-de-sac, Laughter finally returned to streets silenced by fear. Daniel smiled softly, understanding that standing firm against injustice always echoes far beyond ourselves.